All right, everybody. So this is going to be our first of many table talks. We're sitting at our dining room table, kind of thinking through some things that we'd like to share with you guys. Thinking through some things that uh, common questions. Like I know for us when we first started, what was the difference between a water bath canner and what was the difference between a pressure canner? What was the difference in the things that you can with either one of those? So, like,
Yeah, especially for me because I did not grow up with really anybody who canned in my memory. So this is all new to me and has been really exciting to learn.
yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, like, what's the difference between the pressure canner and the water bath canner? That's probably one of the most easily answered questions that any new person who's coming into the scene of home preservation or food preservation in general would
yeah.
have.
Yeah, so water bath canning is safe for high acidic foods. So, like your tomatoes are great for water bath canning. Whereas things like green beans, you're going to want to pressure can because they're low acid.
Yeah, like water bath, we use that for high sugar items too.
Yeah.
So your jams, your jellies, your fruit preserves, um, just the multitude of different things that you can do, syrups. You would water bath can those things, and really that's kind of what got us started into canning. Was I started actually making jam, and we were selling it at the farm stand making
Yeah.
jam. So I got to do that and learned pretty quickly how to water bath, and then we went from jam to making like squash relish. We canned some squash relish, and that was able to be water bath because between the sugar content and the acidity, uh, it would be shelf stable after being boiled under water.
Yes.
And now you have kind of ventured off into making the dive to pressure canning.
Yeah, so canning for me was a mental hurdle because if you mention pressure canning to anybody, they're going to be like, they will explode. And don't get me wrong, if it's done wrong, they can. But there's a level of respect
Yeah.
that needs to be had. But we tell our kids all the time to do dangerous things safely.
Yeah.
And that is a lesson that I, as a parent, have had to learn.
And I think if you could take that principle right there and go all the way through your homesteading journey, because yes, we have smaller animals here right now,
Mm-hmm.
but growing up, I worked a farm, and as I worked on the farm, I worked around cattle, uh, I worked around big equipment, and there's a respect that has to be learned for the equipment that you're running. If you're running a PTO on a tractor, you have to have respect for it because very easily something can go wrong. If you're operating cattle, something can go wrong. A cow is a large animal. You're talking about an animal that can get up to 2,000 pounds, and to put you between a 2,000-pound animal and a fence, it might go pretty south pretty quick. So just keep that in mind as you homestead, as you start to do things on your own. Is there is a respect that you have for your animals. There's a respect that you have to have for the things that you do, the things that are dangerous, because it is something that needs to be respected.
And even us, we do not have cows, cattle here, but we do have a Cooney pig, and he's probably about 200 pounds. So that's also we respect Chunk because we know, like, he could hurt us if he wanted to, but we also treat
Yeah.
our animals with a level of dignity that they are basically pets
And
at this
which
point.
Chunk being the Cooney, he's topped out at about I would guesstimate him at probably 225 plus.
Yeah.
And not a lot of plus on that, but somewhere close to 225 to 250. And with him being that sized, he's actually he managed to get out of a fence one time,
Yeah.
and the amount of strength for as small as that pig is, it's outstanding. The amount of strength that he has, and he's got a great temperament though, and that seems to be the case with most all of the Cooney pigs. Is they have great temperaments.
Yes.
So that's a good homestead pig, a good starter pig.
Absolutely, especially if you have kids. We have a 6, almost 7-year-old,
Yep.
and an 8-year-old, and we have had the pigs since Maddie was probably 3, and
Yep.
the pigs are hers, and she's a tiny thing, so a good temperament pig was a must.
Yeah, and then there is the separation of what we have right now as pets, because they are pets. But our children are very aware that the animals coming onto the farm in the next year, the animals coming onto the farm in the next 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 years, those are all animals that we are preparing to ethically raise and to ethically take to provide us food. And that's the journey that we've decided to go on. We've decided to go on that homestead food journey. We've decided to go on the canning and preservation and doing things the way that our great grandparents did.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to do things the way that our great grandparents did, because some of the stuff that they did just to survive is a lost art.
Yeah. Which we've been kind of easing into that, because it is really hard to get rid of things that you've grown up with. Being a 90s baby raised in the early 2000s, it was nothing for, us to have a bag of chips next to a sandwich or whatever. So this past couple weeks, we started 2025 off strong with easy replacements for the homestead.
Yes.
Last week's goal, what was last week's goal?
We decided we were going to do coffee creamer.
Yes, we did coffee creamer. That was an easy replacement. This week's goal is just trying to use cast iron more.
Cast iron more to do away with store-bought bread.
Yes.
Do you know how easy it is to make bread? Well, if you don't, hang in there. Come back to the channel for a little more, because we're going to make a video in the next couple days, and we're going to show you guys how easy it is to make a loaf of white bread. And it takes, 4 hours out of your day?
Not even that, because although it takes about an hour and a half to rise, you don't have to be standing there tending to it for that long. So you let it rise for an hour, you go do something, you come back, let it rise for another 30 minutes. Another easy goal that we had was to cook breakfast every day, to not rely on Pop-Tarts and cereals, because some of those ingredients, 5-syllable ingredients is not great.
And that's probably something that we'll also work on moving on down the road. Is, I know, like, our son Blaine, he loves the Pop-Tarts. He loves the granola bars. And ultimately, it is so easy to also make your own granola bars. And you can make enough for the week ahead. And once you make enough for the week ahead, you're going to be perfectly fine moving forward from that, because it's there, it's available, they're going to eat it, and they're going to be eating something that is so much healthier than a Pop-Tart or a bag of chips or the things that we grew up with for convenience.
And even if you do end up making homemade Pop-Tarts, you're going to know those ingredients, because for us, sugar is not the enemy, it is the preservatives and the dyes. Our kids, or any kid that I know, does not do well on dyes, especially the red and yellow dyes.
Yeah.
So getting those out of our diet is a big thing. But on this journey, we also want to keep Grace accountable for us. It's okay to have exceptions for those things.
Yeah.
I think one of our exceptions was like sliced cheese.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of hard to mimic at home right now.
Well, and we do as much as we can with an 8 acre property, which allows us to do an immense amount of vegetable growth. It allows us to do an immense amount of fruit, between the berries and the ability that we're going to have here in the near future to hopefully plant a lot more fruit trees. And granted, it may take a few years to get something from those, but if we plant them now, we'll have them later. And that's the thing with perennial crop is if you plant a perennial crop of herbs, if you plant a perennial crop of fruit, if you plant a perennial crop of anything that you're going to love to eat, you may not have it right now, but in the next 3 years, you'll at least have something off of that crop. And then in the next 10 years, you're going to be having a harvest, full harvest of those crops. And you can get trees that are faster to maturity.
Yes.
So you may not be looking at, I'm going to have to wait 15 years to get my apples when you can get a tree that has a 3 year maturity or 5 year maturity.
And that's a mindset that you have to get in is just because I plant it now doesn't mean I get it now. And I think the world has become a very fast-paced environment. And when we first moved here on the farm, we brought up fruit trees and we're like, that is so far away. And we never planted them. And now here we are, year 4 on the farm, that if we would have planted fruit trees that first year, we would be reaping the benefits of that labor. So that's kind of a live and learn situation. But hopefully you guys can hear that and just go for it.
Well, I've got another video out right now that is failing forward.
Yes.
And when I say failing, I don't mean that a failure is a complete and total utter loss of what we've done. Failing forward to me was simply, we didn't plant those fruit trees when we started, and we should have. We didn't put up the fences that we probably wanted to put up when we could have put up, and we didn't. There's a lot of things that here in year 4, I look back on year 1, and I think, well, I really had no idea what I was doing then because my priorities were completely different. And our priorities then were as much of convenience as they were anything. We wanted what we wanted, and we wanted it now. Summer crops are great if you want to grow something and you want a short turnaround on. So plant your squash, plant your green beans, plant those things right as the frost date in your area says no more, and have a good summer garden. And that'll get you through, and it'll get that fire going in you to say, okay, well, I've had a good summer garden. Now I want to move forward. I want to try something different. And that's the journey.
Yeah. And I think that my favorite crop to grow that is like such an ego boost for me is radishes. Because you just sprinkle the whole pack, and I have done that. I am the world's worst about not spacing, and... Yeah,
you hate spacing. I absolutely want to take a ruler stick and go between plants and go between rows. And
I am the chaos gardener that, gives him heart attacks.
And if you ever want somebody to mow your yard, it's not her. She doesn't go the way that I do.
But that is the enjoyment of homesteading and small-time farming. We started on a little less than an acre.
And I wish we'd have done videos then.
Yes, because we had rabbits and pigs and chickens and ducks and turkeys and all of the things, a garden.
Luckily, we had great neighbors.
Yes. We had actually the neighbors' guineas that would come visit. They were our alarm in the morning.
And our direct next door neighbors, they would come over and they would actually look at our chickens. And, that's the thing. If you're in an area like we were, when we had that acre property, you might as well have called it the city from where we're at. And we had good neighbors. They didn't complain about our animals. And that's something that you have to take into consideration, too, is being neighborly. Yeah. And being neighborly for other people. Here, I have no neighbors where we're at. Our neighbors are across the road a half a mile away.
Which was a good thing when my dad kidnapped me one day and took me to pick up a pair of peacocks. Because if you've ever been around a peacock, they are quite loud. So the park that's a field away, they got to hear the peacocks, and that was another animal that is just kind of, they're pretty to look at, but really
They don't serve much of a purpose other than they're pretty to look at, and they make really cool noises. And if you walk outside at daybreak in the morning, you're going to feel like you live in a zoo.
yes.
But that's another thing that I think we so often look at, and was a huge setback for us in year 2, year 3, is we had a predator issue.
Yes.
And that's something that I want you guys to be encouraged, because we have those predator issues. As homesteaders, you're going to deal with a predator issue. I don't care if you live in the city, if you live in the sticks, if you live somewhere that you're just absolutely positively sure that there's no woods around you, somewhere you're going to find a predator issue.
Yes.
Because that's nature.
You know, from our 1 acre property, our predator was neighbors' dogs. They took out
We had about 60 chickens that got killed from a neighbor's dog over a span of 2 or 3 kills.
Yeah.
You know, this was something that happened multiple times. And then, you know, we had brand new chicks that we had just got, and a fox got into the pen there.
Yeah.
And, you know, luckily I was able to catch the fox, and the fox became an issue no more. But we moved out to this property, and as we moved here, we still had a large number of birds. Yeah. And that's something that we have not recovered from. We haven't gotten back to having what some would consider a poultry operation or an egg operation. We haven't gotten back to that because I think for the most part it was discouraging.
Yeah.
When you go outside and there's a fox that you can't catch, and it continually eats your birds, and it continually takes and takes and takes and takes. But I want you to be encouraged that, yes, those are setbacks. They absolutely are. Your feelings are real. The emotions that you're going to have, the anger that you're going to have, the, man, I just lost all this money is real. Mm-hmm. And it's felt. But the lifestyle's still worth it to me. Those setbacks are only setbacks for a period, because that's where we fail forward. We build better fences. We do better monitoring for predators. We do things to deter more predators. You know, during the time that we had predators, I had stopped mowing down our fields because we don't have a large grazing stock of animals to keep the fields managed. I, at my employment, was working very odd hours, working very long hours, and I just didn't have the time to come home and sit on a tractor all night and mow down fields. So I said, I'm just going to let these fields go. Mm-hmm. And as I said, hey, I'm going to let these fields go, then really that opened the door for predators. It opened the door for the fox to have a place to hide. And the fox had a place to hide that I couldn't catch it, because the area that we do have mowed is about 2 acres behind our house, and it shot back into the weeds every time I would see it. So it's not like you could go out and take care of that one.
Right. But also, to just kind of add on to that, is when you do come back, take small steps. Small steps are still moving forward. And
yes,
if you take small steps, you're going to do things more intently, and you're going to build it better. You're going to take time to get good material. You're going to take time to be like, okay, this is what didn't work last time, so let's do it different this time. And
it's okay to use what you've got. Yes. I cannot stress that enough. If I'm talking to somebody that's brand new coming into this, even if we're talking to somebody that's been into this for years, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about when you hear this. You got a junk pile for a reason. You've kept and held on to that old slab of wood for a reason. You've kept and you've held on to that piece of metal or that piece of plastic for a reason. And some way, somehow, you'll figure out how to use it for what you need it to use, or to be used for.
Yes.
And
if you're looking for paint, Lowe's has discount paint. It might not be the color you're looking for. It might be Walmart blue.
We definitely painted a chicken coop Walmart blue.
But the chickens didn't mind.
Which is another failing forward moment, because I rushed on the chicken coop. I wanted to hurry up and get something done. And that's the thing that I encourage you guys to not do is don't rush. Don't feel like you got to do something right now. Don't feel like you've got to build something right this second. If it takes you 5 days to build a chicken coop, if it takes you 2 weeks to build a chicken coop, I should have known better. I worked on a farm, and then I worked in construction, and then I had my own construction business for a while, and I should have known better. But what I did was I rushed, and I said I want to hurry up and get this done, and cut a few corners, and now the chicken coop has a leak, and with it leaking water, it it's not going to last as long.
Yeah.
So I am a strong supporter of do it right the first time, and you won't have to do it again. Or if you do it temporarily, then use the scrap material that you have. Don't go out and buy new stuff to build a temporary thing.
Right. But also, I think that it's easy to be rushed, especially in, again, this world that we're living in. It is okay to go slow. It really is. I think that we have, for the past year and a half, that has been our biggest lesson, is it is okay to slow down. It is okay to enjoy the little things and to not constantly be rushing to get things done only to go to the next thing.
Yes, and it's better for your health to slow down. It's better for your health to not consume the convenience foods that we consume each and every day. It's better to sit down and actually have a family dinner, because a lot of people and we're guilty of it. We're guilty of sitting down and watching YouTube. We're guilty of sitting down and watching TV and having those not really connective family dinners. But what we've tried to incorporate in the last 2 years is to really be adamant on sitting down, on having family dinner, on actually talking to our kids and saying, hey, what was your favorite part about the day? What was the best thing that you did? What's something that you want to do? What's something that we could do together to do better on the farm? And our kids are just as much involved in our farm as we are.
We are very hands-on learning experience minded, which we do homeschool. So that is part of their school. They are the ones that feed the animals. They haven't for the past couple days just because of the Arctic blast we are experiencing. But they probably handle the code better than we do.
But you know what else is good about the code? It gives us time to reset.
Yes.
It gives us time to set back. It gives us time to think about the spring.
Yes.
Because we here in Kentucky have maybe a 2-month period of time where the weather actually gets cold and it actually gets bad. Maybe 3 months on a bad year. And this time between January and February is our time where we plan gardens, where we think about what we're going to do for the next year. We, for the last couple of years, haven't necessarily been as intent as we are this year. The farm is a huge focus for us this year. Obviously, with the wanting to get away from convenience foods, the wanting to get away from store-bought, a lot of things, and really provide for ourselves.
Yeah. And so January and February, we are taking the time to plan the garden around our goals. Like, we don't eat a whole lot of hot peppers, so we're not going to plant a whole bunch of hot peppers. Now, we do eat quite a few jalapeno peppers. We make them in breads and everything. But I think our big project of this year is our herb and tea garden in the front yard.
That's a big one for me, because I really enjoy herbal tea.
Yes.
And I enjoy the benefits that can come from herbal tea.
And that is another part of planning, is don't just chaos garden. Kind of research what you want the benefits to be, and what you will use. Not just, it looks pretty in a book, I have to have it.
Yes.
But what you'll actually use.
I think the other thing to think about when you think about gardening is so many people are intimidated by a garden. And it's really not that hard. Gardening is fairly easy. It can get expensive if you want it to get expensive. I mean, you could have $1,000 garden, or you can have $100 garden. That's on you. That's a choice that you can make, and you can make it as pretty as you want, or it can be as rudimentary as you want,
Mm-hmm.
because you need to just start gardening.
Yeah.
If this is something that you're thinking about, stop thinking about it. Get out there, get your hands dirty. Either break up a piece of property and till it up, or if you want to do the no-till method, then build up your property for that, because that takes a little more work. It's a little more labor intensive.
You can even use containers for
Yeah,
if you rent a place, or if you just don't want to commit to your yard being torn up.
Yeah.
Containers or raised bed gardenings is a good option.
And if you're just wanting to grow like basil or oregano or parsley or cilantro,
Yeah.
those things can be grown in a pot on your window.
Yeah.
I
But
mean-
here's a warning: if you want to grow mint, grow it in a container and watch it.
Or
Because
cut
will
it
spread.
back every year.
It will spread. We have a mint invasion here on the farm, but that is a blessing in disguise, because
Yeah.
a lot of the things that we want to do this year require dried mint or fresh mint.
And that's a lot of your herbal teas. They have a lot of mint in them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of your tinctures and things that are in the medicinal books you'll get, those have mint.
Yes.
And a variety of mint.
But he was talking about how you don't have to spend a fortune on gardening. Some of the best seeds that we have gotten have been the 50-cent seeds from Walmart and the Dollar Tree. They have come up, especially just like the sunflowers, if you just want something pretty to look at.
Yeah, just like with anything else, don't get hooked on a brand name for a seed. If it's all you can afford is the 10-cent pack of seeds at Dollar Tree, go get them. Don't worry about if it's $1 pack of seeds. Don't worry about it's a $2.50 pack of seeds. Don't worry if it's the $3 coated seeds, because I've had the $3 bag of coated seeds that didn't grow at all, where the 50-cent pack of seeds
Yeah.
grew in abundance. So that's the non-beautiful side of homesteading, where I'll just tell you, don't worry about when somebody else is telling you one way or the other that you have to have a big brand name box store seed, when you can go and you can get seeds from somebody like M.I. Gardner. You can get seeds from somebody like Baker Creek, and they'll ship those seeds to you.
And one thing that I just couldn't wrap my head around in the beginning of gardening was just, if you have a seed pack that has 30 seeds in it, you can save those seeds for next year too. If you only use 10, save them for next year. Keep them in a cool, dry place, and they're going to be good.
And if you really want to venture into, and we can talk about that at a different table talk someday, if you grow an heirloom variety of vegetable, you might get smaller vegetables. They may have a little bit smaller yield, but those vegetables are not in a super breed variety. They're not bred into a different genetic system. They're not a F1 or an F2 hybrid. They're actually just the simple plant, the mother plant, the father plant. And you can save those seeds, and year after year, you're going to get the same plant over and over again.
But also, don't get hung up on heirloom. I know that a lot of people want heirloom tomatoes, and that is one of the biggest sellers at most farmers markets is heirloom varieties. But I will say that some of my favorite tomatoes are not heirloom. They are like...
Wild Boar Farms has the grape tomatoes.
Yes.
The atomic grapes.
Yes.
We love those.
They look black and orange when they're ripe, and they are just such fun to grow. So don't get hung up on heirloom.
That's the thing. Don't get hung up on anything. Just get started. That's the best advice I can give anybody, is just go for it.
Yeah.
Get a shovel or get a trowel or whatever you want to do. If you want to wear gloves, wear gloves. If not, get your hands dirty. Just go out and do something, because sitting and thinking about it isn't getting it done. And that's something that we've had to really focus on this year, is sitting and thinking doesn't get it done. We're just going to have to go out, come up with a plan, and enact it.
Yes, absolutely. But I think that the canner is almost done and ready to be released.
Yep.
So I think our table talk is coming to an end.
All right, so hang out with us, and be sure if you like the content, like and subscribe, and we're going to come up with stuff like this. We're going to have table talks a lot more. I think when the weather gets a little better, we may have some garden chats.
Yeah.
And, just we enjoy filming what we do here. And that's why we started a YouTube channel, was to film what we do here. So you guys hang out with us, and we appreciate you watching.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go back and check on the canner.
Yeah, finish the canner.
All right.